The environmental toll of ultra-processed foods is profound and multifaceted, adding a critical layer of concern beyond their well-documented impacts on human health. The entire life cycle of these products, from raw material extraction to production, packaging, distribution, and waste, exerts tremendous pressure on natural resources and ecosystems, driving environmental degradation that threatens planetary health. Understanding these consequences is essential as the global demand for ultra-processed foods continues to rise, compounding the strain on the environment. At the core of the problem is the intensive energy consumption embedded in the production of ultra-processed foods. Unlike whole or minimally processed foods, ultra-processed products require complex industrial processing techniques that consume large amounts of fossil fuels and electricity. High temperatures, chemical treatments, multiple processing stages, and refrigeration all contribute to an energy-intensive manufacturing process. This not only depletes non-renewable energy sources, but also significantly increases greenhouse gas emissions, which fuel climate change. The carbon footprint of processed food manufacturing is thus substantially higher compared to fresh food production. Packaging is another major environmental burden linked to ultra-processed foods. These products are typically wrapped in multiple layers of plastic, cardboard, and aluminum designed for long shelf life and convenience. The vast majority of this packaging is single-use and non-biodegradable, contributing to the growing global plastic pollution crisis. Plastic waste from food packaging clogs waterways, harms marine life, and contaminates soils, creating persistent environmental hazards. Moreover, the production of plastic packaging itself involves the extraction and refinement of petroleum, adding further carbon emissions and environmental degradation. Transportation and distribution of ultra-processed foods also drive environmental harm. These products often travel long distances from processing plants to retail outlets and consumers, requiring extensive fossil fuel consumption for trucking, shipping, and air freight. This global supply chain adds substantially to carbon emissions and air pollution. The refrigerated transport needed to maintain the safety and quality of many ultra-processed foods further increases energy use and emissions. Beyond these direct impacts, the agricultural practices supporting ultra-processed food production are frequently unsustainable. Large-scale monocultures of commodity crops like corn, soy, and wheat, key ingredients in many processed foods, rely heavily on chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and intensive irrigation. These practices degrade soil health, reduce biodiversity, contaminate water sources, and contribute to deforestation. The environmental footprint of these industrial crops is therefore significant, with ripple effects that extend to loss of wildlife habitat and decreased ecosystem resilience. The cumulative environmental cost of ultra-processed foods is enormous. Climate change accelerated by greenhouse gas emissions threatens food security, water availability, and biodiversity. Plastic pollution endangers wildlife and contaminates food chains, ultimately affecting human health as well. Resource depletion and environmental degradation jeopardize the long-term sustainability of food systems. Critically, the environmental impacts of ultra-processed foods also intersect with social justice issues. Low-income communities often bear the brunt of pollution and waste, as landfills and industrial plants tend to be situated near marginalized neighborhoods. Meanwhile, the global demand for these foods drives exploitative agricultural and labor practices in developing countries, further entrenching inequality. Reducing the consumption of ultra-processed foods is therefore not only a health imperative, but an environmental necessity. Shifting towards diets based on fresh, local, and minimally processed foods can substantially decrease energy use, carbon emissions, plastic waste, and water consumption. Supporting sustainable agricultural practices and improving packaging waste management are also critical steps. In summary, ultra-processed foods exact a heavy environmental price through energy-intensive production, excessive plastic packaging, long-distance transportation, and unsustainable agriculture. This environmental degradation compounds the public health harms of these foods, underscoring the urgent need for systemic changes in food production and consumption patterns. Ignoring these issues risks accelerating climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, threatening the health of ecosystems and future generations alike.